Welcome back to the Unpack Mindset, folks. This is Jesse. Hopefully, you guys are having a good Wednesday. Yeah, man, a lot's been going on, right? You had that one guy try to light that building, that ICE building, on fire, and man, the whole thing in Iraq is still going on, and yeah, there's just a lot of stuff going on in this world. But I want to bring it back down to something else and talk to you guys about something else. Let's check out this video and then we'll dissect it and we'll talk about it. So stand by.
All right, can we just be honest about giving homeless people money? Can we be honest about that? Those of you who do that, you're not doing that for the individual. You're doing that for you. These people are homeless. What the heck makes you think that they know what to do with money? What they need is food. Here's the catch. I've been in plenty of situations where I tried to give a homeless person food. They told me, nah, I don't want that. Give me some money. So here's what you got to ask yourself. Do you want to fund them getting better, or do you want to fund their addictions? It's better if you at least donate to an organization that you know is all about rehabilitating these folks. But those of you just giving cash to people on the corner, you're not helping them. The Bible says if a man doesn't work, he shouldn't eat. And don't even try to tell me that's out of context. Now, granted, I understand that some people have mental issues, which is usually the case with most homeless folks anyways. So I understand the caveat, and I understand that there's a lot of different factors. But generally speaking, just giving them straight cash does not help them. All right, can we just...
So what do you guys think? I got a question. And I'm sure we can all relate to this question, right? If you wouldn't want to be judged, right, at your lowest point in life, why judge someone who's living in theirs, right? You know, I feel like that we often forget that, every time we walk past a homeless person and build a story about their life in our heads, right? We forget when we say things like, "Oh, don't give them money," they're going to use it for drugs. Here's the truth, man, and this is how I see it. It's uncomfortable. That sentence in my mind, it doesn't speak wisdom, right? It's fear, right? It's a shield people use so they don't have to feel anything, you know? Because if you assume the worst, right, about somebody, you don't have to help them. You don't have to look at them in the eyes, and you don't have to acknowledge their humanity. Let's talk about the real numbers and not assumptions, right? You know, from my understanding, 20%, according to the National Youth Institute, uh 20% of kids that age out of foster care, they become homeless instantly, right? And that's not because of bad choices, right? We don't want to just go ahead and assume that, right? They aged out, right? And according to the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, uh, their numbers, they're over 25%, right, of all former foster youth will experience homelessness within the first 2 years of aging out. And it's not because they're lazy, it's not because they're irresponsible. And I'm not trying to make it look like I'm coming up with excuses, right? Because it's I feel like it's always good to acknowledge that a lot of people who are homeless, you know, they were state raised, man. They were state raised, and they didn't have the same types of structures that we had, right? Like we had that stability, right? I know I've messed up a lot of times, right? And there was always someone to catch my fall, and be there to support me and guide me and help me make better decisions, right? Here's another thing, right? Studies, according to like I believe it's the National Institute of Justice, they show that foster youth are nearly 10 times more likely to be incarcerated than their peers. I'm sure there's a lot of factors. Many homeless adults were once foster kids, and there is a connection there, right? and a lot of them just never had that stable home, never had a parent to guide them, never had a soft place to land, right? A soft place, a pillow to cry on, right? And they went from foster care to homelessness, from homelessness to jail, right? And from jail back to the streets. It's a cycle, right? It's a cycle, and it's a state system that's it's not guided, right? It's not guided by people that they're personally connected to, right? So the way I see it, when it comes to giving money to the homelessness, when I give freely, man. Not because I'm naive, right? Not because I'm naive to the fact that they might do drugs. Not because I think that they can fix their life. It's because of my intention, right? It's my intention that matters. My compassion that matters, and it's my willingness, to see a human being instead of a stereotype, right? That matters. Folks, once that money leaves your hand, my hand, the judgment leaves with it. If they buy food, beautiful, man. That's what we want, right? If they buy a bus ticket home, right? They're tired of the life on the street. That's what we all dream for, right? Like you're praying that maybe, yeah, they'll get that ticket. They're tired of this life. They're just done with it, and they just want to go back home, right? And if they buy something that numbs the pain for the night, man, that's between them and God, man. You know, generosity isn't about is it's not about controlling the outcome. It's not about controlling people, man. It's about honoring that moment, right? When someone really, really just needs somebody else to see them beyond the stereotype, right? Here's the part that I feel a lot of people forget. Some people might say it's selfish, but I don't. I feel like giving to the homeless, giving money to the homeless, it keeps us grounded. We all have the potential for being mean, man, and for being mean spirited and being evil, and it keeps our own heart soft, man. It keeps you grounded. It reminds you that you're still connected to humanity, right? And it's in a world that's trying to make you numb constantly, right? When you give without judgment, man, you're not just helping someone survive the day. You're protecting your own spirit, right? In many ways, right? From becoming cold, right? Some people, I feel like some people let go of that, and then they become extremely hardened towards people in need, and then they just don't want to help anymore. So the way I feel about it, man, the next time you see somebody struggling, man, ask yourself, if this were me, if life had broken me down to the concrete, right? And that was all I had to support my head. How would I want the rest of the world to treat me? Compassion is never wasted, folks. And judgment is, right? And sometimes the smallest act of kindness is the only light that someone sees all day, right? So for this, folks, I say give freely, man. Give gently, give without fear, because the world is it's heavy enough, man. And your open heart might be the only thing that keeps someone from disappearing completely, right? Anyways, these are just my thoughts, folks. If you like my content, like, subscribe, share, and yeah, hopefully you have a good rest of the week. See you later in the week. Thank you. Good night.